You want to know which wide receivers can help you keep rolling through the fantasy playoffs? We've got you covered with our must starts and our must sits. Don't forget, hit that subscribe button and click on a little notification bell to catch all our latest videos as they come out. All right, Chris, let's get to which wide receivers you love in their matchups for week 15.
I don't necessarily love Calvin Ridley's matchup, but I love the player and I love the situation. And I know we're going to get a lot of questions about him just because of the matchup. People are going to be scared. Don't be scared. He's an every week must start wide receiver, whether Julio plays or not. It doesn't matter. If you look at over his last 4 games, 9, 9, 10, and 12 targets over that stretch. He'll perform again this week. Don't freak out about Tampa Bay. It's okay. Start Calvin Ridley if you've got him.
Yeah, I feel like coming into the year, we weren't exactly sure Ridley was going to be more like a wide receiver 3 or wide receiver 2. It might be matchup dependent and all this. I feel like he's pretty much entered must start territory every week. And I'm going to go with a guy who definitely has to be locked in. I know we've talked about this, that you can't not start Cooper Kupp or Robert Woods for that matter. And of course, going against the Jets, it's a no-brainer. I know that you might think, well, they won't need to pass the ball a lot. There's a lot of concern about that. The score, is going to get away from them. Just the volume won't be there. Well, as we saw with Seattle against the Jets, that's not the case. They'll roll over them first, and then maybe they'll ease up in the second half. But in this game, I actually like Kupp a little bit better. The Jets are a team that play a lot of man coverage, and Kupp seems to get targeted a lot more, beats man coverage more than Woods does. And so I kind of like him a little bit better here. I think both guys are must starts, honestly, but I give the edge to Kupp. No brainer. He could put up huge numbers.
Yeah, and we even saw last week the Rams didn't throw that much, but Kupp still came through with a really nice game. So I wouldn't be worried about that in this matchup. Yeah, like you said, both must starts, especially Cooper Kupp. And then I'm going with a guy who has been disappointing lately. That's Terry McLaurin of my Washington football team. I know it's been a rough couple of games, but I see a light at the end of the tunnel here. Number one, Alex Smith has that calf injury. Very, very iffy for this weekend. He did not practice today. But even if he plays, I still like McLaurin. But if Dwayne Haskins is a starter, that's a big bump for McLaurin, because one thing about Dwayne Haskins is he's not a dump-off guy like Alex Smith. He will throw the ball downfield. He will take chances, and that will help McLaurin. But also, going against Seattle, I know the defense has been better lately. The addition of Carlos Dunlap, they're getting healthier in the secondary. But I still don't believe this is an elite defensive unit. They've just had some really, really soft matchups. So I think McLaurin gets back on track this week. If you've been disappointed by him the last couple of weeks, don't worry. Give him another chance, because I think he bounces back in a big way this week.
Yeah, this is really a tough one, honestly. Like you said, Seattle's defense has been totally different the last couple of weeks. But as always, schedule matters. And so don't get too fooled into thinking that all of a sudden they're an elite defense. And McLaurin is just, it's tough to ever bench him. So I'm going with Chase Claypool this week. Okay, well, here's the thing. Going into this week, it looks like we may not see James Conner. Of course, he's questionable, got a quad injury. It looks like they're going to be throwing the ball often in this game. They will roll over Cincinnati. And Deontay Johnson, you've got to be worried about his involvement. I know that he did come back in the second half. He was benched because of the drops. One drop in this game, he could hit the bench again. And the best individual matchup for wide receivers versus cornerbacks on the other side is for Claypool, because Juju, besides the fact he only averages like 4 yards per catch now, he gets Mackenzie Alexander. So I like Claypool's big playability. I like his matchup. I like the fact that he probably will get targeted a little bit more this week than usual. So he's a guy that I'm going to go with and trust.
Yeah, you're right about Deontay Johnson. He's one drop away from getting benched, which could certainly open the door for Chase Claypool. And then my final must start is a guy who I feel like is kind of going under the radar, and that's Brandon Aiyuk. This guy is balling right now. He is playing incredibly, and nobody's really talking about him. Maybe because he's on San Francisco and their games are always on late. I don't know what it is. But we got to start treating Brandon Aiyuk as an every week must start, don't worry about it type player. He's got at least 75 yards and or a touchdown in each of his last 5 games. And in 4 of those games, he's gone for at least 90 yards. And with no Deebo Samuel, Probably no George Kittle, although I've heard there's a chance he might play this week, but probably no George Kittle. But even with George Kittle, I don't care. Brandon Aiyuk is going to be heavily involved in this game plan. If you've got him, don't worry about it. You get him in your lineup no matter what you have to do.
Absolutely love Aiyuk. Couldn't agree more. I think he might be a top 10 wide receiver for fantasy this week against Dallas, who's giving up massive points to wide receivers. You definitely have to keep Aiyuk in there. And then my final must start, guy that we had no desire to think about or talk about the first half of the year and talk about him on waiver wire pickups the last couple of weeks. Now he's finally caught on. T.Y. Hilton isn't just a must add anymore. He's a must start. Going against the same Houston team that he torched for 8 catches and 110 yards with a touchdown just a couple of weeks ago. He's breaking out at the perfect time. This could be your league winner at wide receiver off the waiver wire. And he's been averaging almost 6 catches and 92 yards per game in the last 3 games with 4 touchdowns. That's the kind of production that you need to win. You absolutely have to start him.
Yeah, and Frank Amarante, apologies if I mispronounced his name, from Rotoballer, tweeted this out today. The Texans have played 4 games without Bradley Roby, the cornerback, and in those games, wide receiver ones, Allen Robinson, 9 catches, 123 yards, a touchdown. Devontae Adams, 13, 196 and 2. DJ Chark, 7, 146 and 1. T.Y. Hilton, which you just talked about, 8, 110 and 1. So, yeah, smash spot for T.Y. Hilton. You absolutely have to play him.
There you go. And then the opposite goes for these guys. We'll give you our must-sits, some wide receivers to avoid for Week 15. Who you got first?
I'm going to start with Jamison Crowder. This guy was a hero early in the season, right? And then he had that one bounce-back game a couple weeks ago, strained his calf, tried to play through it last week. You know, he played. He was limited. He had 5 targets, only 2 catches, didn't really do a whole lot. Now he gets a brutal matchup against the Rams secondary. Look, I don't care if he plays in the slot. This Rams secondary is good everywhere, and it doesn't seem like the calf is 100%. I doubt it's going to be 100% by Sunday. So a limited, limping around, I got to be out on him.
Yeah, you know, you don't want to start any Jets if you have to in this matchup. And I'm going to go with a guy that I know is usually in lineups, but really at this point, we have to ask why. Tyler Lockett, what has he done lately? And by lately, I mean the entire second half of the season. This is a guy that hasn't reached even 70 yards in a game since week 7, and he's only done it twice all year. Basically, his resume for this season consists of 2 monster games, 2 good but not great games, and then the rest have been duds. And so if you look at the fact that DK Metcalf is clearly the alpha there, Lockett is doing kind of what he did last year, which is fade throughout the second half. Again, he had a monster game and the rest were just disappointments. I feel like he's just not worth starting. And then Washington, their defense has been pretty solid against wide receivers all year. It's not like it's a great spot for him anyways. So I have 0 interest in Tyler Lockett, honestly, for the rest of the season.
Yeah, this is another guy that everybody just keeps starting because of his name. But if his name was something else and we look at his production, he would not be in lineups. And I agree, against Washington, no way am I starting Tyler Lockett. I'm also not starting DeVante Parker going against New England. Coming back from a hamstring injury, that's never a good thing. You always got to worry about that. And New England's defense has actually gotten a lot better. Well, I should say their secondary has gotten a lot better. If you look at that game last week, they didn't get destroyed through the air. They got destroyed on the ground by Cam Akers, right? Gilmore, their stud corner, has actually been playing like his old self the last few weeks here. He's been playing a lot better. And I'm guessing if Parker is out there, Gilmore is going to be spending a lot of time covering him. So, again, coming off a hamstring injury against a tough secondary and a tough corner in Stephen Gilmore, I'd rather just keep Parker on my bench if I can.
Yeah, we know Parker has a history of soft tissue injuries, hasn't really performed well when he's not 100% health. And even so, this matchup just begs you to sit him. And I'm going to go with Robby Anderson for my last must sit. You know, he's been pretty productive this season, but the last couple of games has been the benefit without DJ Moore in the lineup. DJ Moore should be back on track to play. Curtis Samuel's still there. And of all the receivers in Carolina, he's the one, Anderson is the one, who's probably going to see a lot of Jair Alexander. Alexander has been one of the elite corners this season. I don't know it's necessarily a shadow situation. It seems like the Packers are not doing that as much with him, but still, it's not a great spot for him. And I just don't feel like Anderson has the upside because a lot of his production came early in the season and he's really tapered off since then. So I just feel like in this case, I feel like the ceiling isn't high enough that you could probably go with a better option like the ones we mentioned earlier. Thanks for watching. Don't forget, hit that subscribe button and check out our other videos to help you with all the best advice.